This is a Sports Catastrophe production.
Hey there, Heather Ho, there's Jeff Cutastrophe. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. And on this day, December the 4th, 2018, Seattle got their franchise. The NHL will get to 32 franchises in 2021. So it would take a few years for Seattle to do it, but they got the green light to put their expansion team on ice and give the NHL an even 32 teams. So, anyway, we all know about the Seattle Kraken, and right now they're not doing as good as they are as of this taping. But Seattle in hockey circles was huge, and people wanted hockey in Seattle. I mean, it's part of the Pacific Northwest. There are hockey fans in Seattle that flock to Vancouver to watch the Canucks, the closest team, and all that. Now, Seattle's hockey history doesn't start with the Kraken. No. It starts way back in the 1910s, part of the Western Hockey League, not the minor hockey league in Canada that has teams like Regina, Calgary, and Kamloops, among others. No, it was a major professional league that were rivaled the National Hockey Association, which turned into the National Hockey League. And Seattle was doing their thing. The Seattle Metropolitans were a very decent team. And heck, they actually won the Stanley Cup in 1917, becoming the first American-based team to win the Cup. A lot of people would think that it was an NHL team, but no, it was Seattle 1917. Back when the Western Hockey League's champion would fight the National Hockey Association's champion in a series to determine the Stanley Cup champion. And Seattle won the Cup in 1917. That was before the NHL officially existed, and it was the NHA. However, 2 years later, Seattle got to the Stanley Cup finals against Montreal, and it was going to be a good battle. All the games were going to be played in Seattle, and it was under Western rules, meaning that there would be a sixth offensive player on the ice, a rover, as they call it, who could play forward and defense. Of course, hockey back in the 1910s, a lot different than the 2010s, and of course 2023, but that's not the point. The point being is that the Seattle Metropolitans got to the Stanley Cup final, took on the Montreal Canadiens. Unfortunately, a worldwide event called the Spanish influenza happened, kind of like COVID in 2020, but it shut down the world. Remember, medicine back in 1919 was a whole lot different than 2020-ish. So anyway, after 5 games in which both teams won twice and there was a tie, the series was abandoned because of many Montreal players and officials getting influenza, and legendary defenseman Bad Joe Hall dying from Montreal. There were rumors that Montreal was going to have to use replacement players to play out the series. They even decided to give Seattle the Stanley Cup because Montreal was in poor shape, but Seattle politely declined, like they should. I'm sorry, but that's the way I think. Anyway, the Seattle Metropolitans were decent and would fold in 1924. But, the Western Hockey League was huge. Seattle would have a decent minor league affiliation until 1975 when they left. So, anyway, Seattle was without hockey. They had a basketball team for a few decades, which won the 1979 championship, if memory serves me right. They were decent. In 94, they had a chance to crush things, but the Nuggets beat them in the first round, surprisingly. But regardless, Seattle lost their basketball team, and then they were just basically a baseball football team. I mean, not to knock the city of Seattle. I mean, the baseball team was decent, but couldn't get to the playoffs. Worth a lick, unfortunately. And the football team did win a Super Bowl in 2014. That's the thing. But Seattle got their, in a sense. So in December 4, 2018, they got the franchise. Seattle was rumored to get an NHL expansion team for so long. It hurt. But Seattle got it. So Seattle would have to make do with their financing plan. They would make sure they would tear down the Key Arena and build the Climate Pledge Arena. I know climate pledge is not a cleaner. You know, everyone knows pledge is a cleaner, furniture cleaner. But no, it's not pledge. Not like lemon pledge. It's climate pledge. It's a pledge to fix the climate. Because let's face it, it's not doing so well. Regardless, the Seattle Kraken were there. There were many names. The Metropolitans were actually were given a chance to be the expansion team's name. But unfortunately, because there's a Metropolitan division in the NHL, it would have create some problems. So they were the Kraken. They were the Kraken. A mythical kraken of Scandinavian folklore and part of the resemblance to the giant Pacific octopus. And then April 30th, 2021, they paid their final installment of the expansion fee, meaning they were in as a franchise and would start the 2021 season in the NHL. Dave Haskell was named the first head coach. They did their expansion draft. Mark Giordano, who's now a Leaf, was the first captain. The first regular season game was lost to Vegas. Ryan Donato scored the first ever Seattle goal, but in their second game, they beat Nashville to win their first game. They would finish 60 points in last place in the Pacific. However, in their second season, they shocked a lot of people by clinching a playoff berth in the first place. They were the top wildcard team, 46 wins, but they shocked the defending Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche in the first round before losing to Dallas in 7 games. They were fighting. They were a fighting team, and that's all there is to it. And I welcome Seattle as a good franchise and a viable franchise that could make things happen. My good friend Jason Lundgren would agree that the Seattle needed hockey. Next up, basketball. I want to see a team in Seattle for basketball as much as I want to see Montreal or Vancouver get the other franchise. Just saying. Anyhow, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do